Hello everyone and welcome to the webinar, the very first webinar of Talking Team in 2021. My name is Nilu Parvinashtiani and I'll help with facilitation of today's webinar. This webinar is organized and sponsored by the Federal Highway Administration and is hosted by the National Operations Center of Excellence, also known as NOCO. So if you don't know us already, please use the NOCO useful links box that you see on the right side of the screen to browse through the resources and links that we have there to get to know NOCO better. Also on your screen, you can see a download pod where you're able to download the presentations from today's webinar. This webinar is being recorded and the recording and the PDF of the slides is also available on the on-demand learning section of the NOCO website. Additionally, the attendees are on listen-only mode, but please use the question discussion pod just like you're using it right now for any comments or any questions during the webinar. We have dedicated some time at the end for Q&A, so please just make sure to put your questions there as they come to your mind, and we'll be covering those during the webinar and also at the end of the webinar. So that's all I had with the logistics, and with that I'll hand it over to our moderator, Paul Joda.
Thanks, Nilo, and thanks to the National Operations Center of Excellence again for helping us with this webinar. And hello, everybody. It's been a while since we've had a chance to get together. If you remember, we were off schedule in November and December because of the holidays. So now we're back on our typical fourth Wednesday of the month routine, 1:30 to 3 Eastern, so just a reminder. And we have an exciting lineup for you today. As usual, we have the normal executive leadership group, meet the executive leadership group section, which is going to be this month is the International Association of Fire Chiefs and Chief Norris Croom from the Castle Rock. He's a chief of the Castle Rock, Colorado Fire Department, and the representative from IAFC, but I guess I did say that already to the ELG, but he is kind of great partner over the last few years, and I'm sure you'll be happy to hear from him. Next up will be Ashley Buechter from Missouri DOT. She's going to be talking about the digital alerts pilots in St. Louis and Kansas City, and also how she obtained federal highway grants with STIC funding, State Transportation Innovation Council funding, which is, you guys should all be aware of. And then we're going to do something a little bit unique this time. We're going to play a recording that we used for the Everyday Counts Summits. And when was that? November, December? Anyways, it just gives you a more in-depth overview of what the Everyday Counts initiative is going to be about, Next Generation TIM, rather than, I think it's just a more in-depth but still a high-level overview of what we can offer working with you to advance the state of the practice in all these areas. So next month, we're going to be focusing on an aspect of our Everyday Counts initiative with digital alerts. We're going to have the hostile, Corey Hose, I'm sorry I butchered that name, CEO and founder of the Haas Alert. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with the Haas Alert. So rather than, it's good to hear from the users of the Haas Alert, but I've found in discussions with the actual managers from the providers that there's a lot more information that we may not be aware of. So we're going to feature these companies and with their representatives. And we're going to make way as in similar technology. Bill Buechter is president, and he's going to talk about the Make Way technology. And then we're going to have Ross Schleckler of iCone. I'm sure you guys, most of you are familiar with iCone as well. So, so we thought, I will mention, and we're going to repeatedly mention, that we don't endorse or support necessarily any product. We're not here to sell any product. Jim and I and Joe Tebow, Federal Highway, but we do want to make sure that the community knows what's out there and hear directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So with that, I will introduce Chief Croom from Castle Rock Fire Department. Chief Croom.
Thanks, Paul, and I appreciate it. Howdy, everybody. Again, my name is Norris Croom. I currently serve as the Fire Chief in Castle Rock, Colorado. We're halfway between Denver and Colorado Springs. And I am one of the executive leadership group representatives representing the IFC. And for those of you who don't know, I just want to take a few minutes and just kind of brief you on the IFC as a whole and kind of what we do. And so we do represent the leadership pretty much worldwide in a number of areas, but specifically on behalf of President Richard Carrizo and the entire executive board, we represent about 11,000 fire and EMS leaders here within the United States. So quickly, just my background, I've been with the Castle Rock Fire and Rescue Department for about 34 years. I've been with the IFC since 1998, and I serve on the International Board of Directors. And here in Colorado specifically, I had the opportunity to serve on the state of Colorado's Governor's Task Force on First Responder Safety on Roadways. I've worked with some other companies doing some roadway safety issues, but really the previous governor stood up the task force after we had a number of incidents on our roadways out here, two of which we lost troopers within my jurisdiction that was struck and killed on the interstate. And so I certainly have a vested interest in what's going on here locally, but not only that impact has really made it key for me to say, hey, at a national level, what can we do to make the roadways safer for all of our folks? So really the IFC's mission is to lead, educate, and serve, and we're providing that leadership to current and future chiefs, EMS officials, you name it, both volunteer and career. There's no separation there. To do the best that we can through that vision, information, education, services, and representation, really to do that professional development across the board. It's not just a highway issue. I mean, it's everything fire and EMS related, and we understand that. And it's also in working with our partners with that. So the IFC actually has 8 divisions, and you can see on the screen there, including our partners up north in Canada, and they have the same challenges that we do. So we're pretty fortunate to have a wide reach. And really the divisions are one of our avenues for reaching out to the agencies and departments that are in each of those states. So we have our international board, then on that board we have each of these division representatives. So our communication chain and link can go from the board down to the divisions and then down to the state level. But in addition to the divisions, we also have a number of sections, committees, and task forces. I represent the EMS section on the board. We've got 9 other sections that are also represented. We have a couple of constitutional committees. We have a number of ad hoc committees. We've implemented a number of task forces, and last year, we've had a COVID task force and an economic task force. And then we represent the IFC on a number of different organizations, and the ELG is just one example of that. We've got members that are involved across the board in a variety of different areas, ranging from National Fire Protection Association committees to the Center for Public Safety Excellence, on and on and on. So we try and influence as much as we can and bring that information back and get it back out to our members. So when the IFC looks at TIM specifically, that first responder safety on traffic incidents is paramount. We know that there's about 5 firefighters that are struck and killed each year. But as I said before, it's not just about firefighters. It's about all of us that are out there on the roadways. We fully support TIM's effort. We were fortunate enough to be part of the original group that was stood up, and one of our former presidents was one of the initial members on the ELG. We continue to have that. We had a little hiatus, and then in 2019 I was asked to step in and serve in this role, and I've done that, was willingly asked to do that and serve. But ultimately, you know, we're working to institutionalize that TIM's training and those practices. One of the things that we're looking at trying to do and how we can implement that is that really it starts at the basic level. And so if we can start with our basic fire academies and our EMS training programs, where we're bringing brand new individuals in and get them educated to start with on the importance of TIMs and how to operate on our roadways, that's really the key. And then obviously with that, refresher training and education is a continuum, as well as best practices. So again, going back to our mission of lead, educate, and serve, it's not only about fire and EMS, but it's all of our responders. And it's not just a national issue, it comes all the way down to the local issue. And so we continue to try and represent our membership in all of those local, regional, state, and national efforts. And then along with that is the education piece. We've published numerous articles on best practices. Again, the emphasis on training and implementation. And then serving as fire service SMEs, not only on groups like this with the ELG, but to assist departments and other organizations. We have a number of resources that are available and subject matter experts that have really done a great job. And as we kind of get in here a little further, you'll see some examples of that. You know, the Traffic Incident Management National Unified Goal is to provide that responder safety, that safe and quick clearance, prompt, reliable, interoperable communications. And I don't think this is anything that anybody on this call doesn't know. And we really try to emphasize that with all of our members moving forward. Currently within the IFC, we're actually working on a project with the United States Fire Administration to update the Emergency Vehicle Safety Initiative Manual, and you see a copy of the front page there. This document was last updated in 2014, and the United States Fire Administration contacted the IFC and asked if we would be willing to take the lead on this project. While you see a fire truck and a firefighter on that front page, it is not just about fire and EMS. It does include law enforcement and other emergency responders. And we've had a number of meetings already and are working on the specific chapters to get the most up-to-date information in so that we can provide a current revision that we can get back out to, again, not only the fire service, but to all of our responders. And we have a very diverse group of folks that have been working on this particular project to include law enforcement, towing, EMS, fire, federal highways, state highway groups. It's very exciting to see all of the participation that we've had so far. And I'm really hoping that this product is beneficial for everybody. Going forward, really the IFC is going to continue that support with federal highways and the ELG. We've been working to revamp some of our resources. Specifically, one of our websites that we had was a little outdated, so we've been trying to get that back up and running with best practices and resources. And then really it's just that continued messaging out to our members that you know, TIMS is important. And a lot of our members have said, well, you know, we don't have an interstate that runs through our jurisdiction. And I think all of us know it's not just about interstates. It's not just a highway issue. It's truly any roadway issue. As we look within my jurisdiction, yes, I have an interstate that runs through the middle of it, but I also have 3 state highways and a number of local streets that the speeds on those streets can sometimes be just as much as what we're seeing on the interstate. And unfortunately, the driving actions seen there aren't any different than what we're seeing on the interstate. So that has been really our emphasis, is to get our members to understand that, you know, it is not just a highway issue. TIMS is important for any type of response onto any type of roadway. And the other piece to that is a lot of people think that, well, it's just, you know, for crashes. It's not. I mean, there's a number of times when we're operating off of a roadway for a wildland fire, you know, for a hazardous materials incident, for a structure fire, and we still have to take these considerations in as far as what that operation on the roadway looks like and how that's impacting the motoring public. So really, that's I just wanted to give you a quick overview about it. We've got departments that are doing a great job, and as you can see on the screen here, a couple departments down in Texas. One actually has mounted attenuators on the back of their apparatus. that they're using for roadway responses. Another department down in, both of these are in the Metroplex area, Dallas-Fort Worth area. Another one has taken their apparatus after they've spent their useful life and have completed their reserve time and have converted them into traffic management response apparatus as well. So as you can see on the one, it has blocker 3 on it with additional signage, and they've done just a great job with that. These are just 2 examples. There's departments in North Carolina, there's departments out here. Members across the board have just done a phenomenal job in really embracing traffic incident management. And while they've done a great job, we can always do better. And that's really the focus of our representation on the ELG to how can we help augment the process as a whole and make it better for everybody on the backside. So with that, that's really all I have today, Paul. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Great presentation. Really appreciate IAFC's participation, and we're very happy to have you as a representative. So we look forward to, just for those of you out there in the States, it's a good idea to reach out to your local chapter or your division or your state when you're trying to engage them within your activities and your TIM committees, things like that. So, that's something I always like to keep in mind. So with that, I will stop talking and pass the baton over to my partner in crime, Mr. Jim Ostrich.
Thanks, Paul, and greetings, everyone. Well, my slide is coming up. I'm going to be very brief here because the other presentation that Paul mentioned from Ashley Buechter and, of course, our EDC 6 Next Gen TIM video we want to get to. I'd like to start out with this slide regarding the struck by status. A lot of you may know we're off to a horrible start here in January with three law enforcement officers having been struck and killed. Keep this always on your mind, and in particular as we get into the year here and when we start really ramping up our campaigns for National Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week in November. But in general, the importance of educating our public regarding move over laws and the great things that are being done by all of you in the traffic incident management arena. Real quick here, I'm only going to show a couple slides from the training. We're over, as you can see, 510,000. A long way to go. I know you're probably sick of hearing me say this, but we really need to ramp up, in particular, training through the web-based versions through respondersafety.com. and the National Highway Institute. There's just it's a great opportunity. I know it's not the same as doing it in person, but you can see the number there down the third banner there. We're almost at 100,000, which is good news, but I'll speak to another point here in a minute with the bar chart. So this piece here is probably was going to take a couple of minutes. I want to invite Katie Belmore to talk to this slide very quickly, because in the last webinar we talked about our transition from the National TIM Training SharePoint site that is maintained at Federal Highway that all trainers upload their stats to, as well as access the TIM training materials. We have successfully transitioned to an external website that you see the URL here, and I want to give Katie a minute or so to talk to this. Katie? You muted, Katie? Okay. Are you unmuted now?
Nilo might have to unmute her.
*6 maybe?
All right, I think Nilo got me. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Katie, thank you.
Up on that.
Quickly, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'll be real quick. As Jim said, we do have the TIM training website up and live. We did want to do some testing, so we're finishing that up and finalizing the user guide, and we'll definitely have that out to everybody by the end of this week. But I know there are some people, even some people on the phone here that are chomping at the bit. So I'll also copy that link into the chat pod in just a second. And anybody that had an active account, so people that were entering records and were regularly in there, we were able to transfer your account from the old SharePoint system into the new system. You would just need to go in and reset your password. So if you just hit login and hit forgot your password, you can enter your email. It'll give you a new the ability to change your password, and then you should be able to get into the system. So that's kind of a little bit of the testing. We've had a couple people, I know Todd confirmed for us that stuff did all work. And then there's also all the options there for new users. You can register, and that process is all there. So if you don't want to wait till the end of the week for the user guide, that link is there and you can go play around with the site. It's very user-friendly and should be very familiar for anybody that used our SharePoint site. And I think the only other thing we just wanted to note is we are still planning to add the CAPC form, but that's going to be part of a future site update. So we'll let people know once that's out there and available. So did I miss anything, Jim?
No, we're just excited, and hopefully everyone will find it easy to work with, like you said, Katie. Thank you.
Yeah, and just one last thing that worth mentioning, Jim, is I just ask people to be patient. It is a little bit slow loading, but once you get in there, it works pretty well. So just give it that extra couple seconds. So, all right, thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Katie. So another few seconds here. Here's the national map with both the in-person and web-based training stats. I think the majority of the folks here don't get to see this until the Talking Tim. But again, that million plus that we're still engaged, all of you hardworking to get to is our goal. And so keep doing what you're doing. Once we get through this pandemic, we'll be able to go back to in-person. So take advantage of the web-based. Here are the totals by state. And last here is that bar chart I wanted to share that it amazes me, and this is no offense to our law enforcement brethren with us today and across the country, but you'll notice that between fire rescue and EMS, we're just shy of 260,000. I mean, it's like a 50%, 49% difference between fire rescue, EMS, and law enforcement. So you may not think that's important, but I think it's super important, and ultimately the numbers to the far right, the totals, those numbers are low. There's many more to be trained, and I just feel compelled that I have to say that because it's, it's true. There's many more that we need to train, and it's up to leaders like every one of you on this webinar today. So you could say the same as well for DOT and Public Works. Certainly towing and recovery could do better, and the other discipline categories, hazmat, coroners, and the like. So I went over a little bit, Paul. Sorry about that. And here's our contact information, and we're here to serve you. So thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Jim. Well, I've never gone over before. I know that. And just for those of you that don't know, the pain, the trials and tribulations we had over the years with that SharePoint site of old, you know, Katie and Jim, I'm sure, are happier than me, but I'm a close third to say goodbye to that old thing that we had so much trouble with over the years. So bye-bye. With that, we'll keep moving because we have a lot to cover today. So we're going to, as in the introduction, I'm going to hand it over to Ashley, who is a manager with the Missouri DOT, been a great advocate of ITS, and I forget exactly what your title is, Ashley, but, Traffic Liaison Engineer. So, but we've worked with Ashley on a couple of different initiatives, and always great to work with. And well, let me stop talking and let Ashley do the talking. So,
all
take
right.
it off.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is Ashley Buechter. I am a traffic liaison engineer at Missouri Department of Transportation, and what I tell people that I oversee are the TSMO initiatives. So that's Transportation Systems Management and Operation. And under that umbrella consists of ITS devices, signal operations, highway lighting, work zone safety, and I also get involved with traffic incident management. So what I'm going to talk about today is Missouri DOT and our involvement with real-time digital alerts. And looking at, or even just hearing who the presenters that are going to be at the Talking Tim webinar in February, I think this is going to be a good foundation or setting the stage for those presentations, because I'm going to hit on HAWS and Makeway in my presentation. So just to kind of lay the groundwork for my presentation and to talk about the story, I'll direct your attention first to this chart here that shows number of fatalities. And this actually is just through third quarter of 2020. Our fourth quarter data isn't quite yet final, but this still just shows the picture. And this is the trend across the United States. Is just in 2020, our fatalities were, higher than what we've seen in years past. So that trend was true in Missouri, and I know it was true in other states across the United States. But I will also point out, if you also look at the text that I have highlighted here, this comes out of our Strategic Highway Safety Plan, which we unveiled a new plan in the fall of 2020, which is titled Show Me Zero. But I think this highlighted text just kind of paints the picture of why we're doing what we're doing. So I'll just read this aloud. It says, perhaps no behavior on our roadways has become more alarming than distracted driving. Cell phone-related crashes in particular are one of the fastest growing causes of traffic crashes in Missouri, increasing by more than 30%. Distracted driving is the most commonly observed risky behavior on Missouri roadways, which is a scenario many encounter on a daily basis. So hearing that, seeing these numbers, that's just the story behind why, again, we're doing what we're doing at the DOT. So taking all of that and continuing that, we want to have a continuous effort to improve the safety of employees and motorists. We have a desire to provide advanced notifications to everyone, every time, and we don't want any obstacles to stand in our way. And, I have an emergency response truck here shown, but this also applies to other fleet at the DOT. But as I'll get into some of the details, we've started this project on our emergency response fleet. That's where this all began. So what is it? What is this tool? I've been referring to it as a real-time digital alert warning. But how it works is basically whenever our emergency response operator turns on their emergency lights, a digital warning gets sent to a motorist who has some navigation apps such as Waze. The notification will be sent to that application notifying the driver of our presence and letting the driver know that we are out there. So some of the details, so as I mentioned earlier, we're doing 2 different types of pilots at the DOT. So one of them was in the Kansas City district, and on the Kansas City side of our state and our TMC, the TMC is part MoDOT and part KDOT. So I also have Kansas DOT listed here. But almost 2 years ago, we started piloting this real-time digital alert called HAWS Alert. And then on the St. Louis side of our state, so on the eastern side, we were piloting a technology called Make Way Safety. And like I said, these all started on the emergency response fleet trucks, but over the last several months, we've been working with management at the DOT to expand this technology, and I'll get into a little bit of those details in a little bit. So some of the benefits, so overall, it improves safety, saves money, and saves work and time. So it improves safety because the advanced notification of our emergency response vehicles and personnel will help nearby motorists to know that we're out there on the road, so they can have more time to react to us. They can move over, they can slow down. They're more alert and more aware of our presence out on the roadway. And obviously, as you guys all know, every second counts for those working on our highways. So it also can save money. So the less reliance we have on our external signs, such as the dynamic message boards that we have along our road, the less we'll have to use those boards, and therefore that saves some time, or saves some money for us. So then it also saves work and time, meaning there's no additional effort needed to be made by either the emergency response operator or our TMC operator to send those real-time digital alerts to the traveling motorist. So it's all automatic, so that the ER operator can focus on safety at the incident scene, and no extra steps are needed to send the information to the nearby motorist. So some of the challenges, and we've worked through several of these in the recent future, but one of the challenges is not knowing exactly how many motorists are alerted as compared with general driving public volume. We know we're sending this message out to the motorists, but we've had a hard time trying to capture how many people actually get that notice. So we're working through some of those details to try to capture that information. And then also just getting additional devices installed due to some workload, COVID restrictions, and some shared work that took place at our DOT this past summer. But again, these are challenges that we are actively working through and overcoming. So some results and next steps. So Missouri DOT has something called the Innovations Challenge, and this is a challenge that's held every year, and employees across the state can submit different ideas for this challenge. And I'm happy to mention that in the 2019 and 2020 challenge, this actually received MoDOT's Director's Safety Award. So this project for the installation of the real-time digital alerts onto our emergency response fleet in Kansas City and St. Louis district won that award. And then towards the end of 2020, we found out that it also won the ITS Heartland Best ITS Product Award. And then lastly, I mentioned this earlier regarding future expansion. So as I've mentioned several times before, we were piloting this in Kansas City and St. Louis on our emergency response. But we've seen the benefit of it, and knowing where we were in 2020 in terms of just crashes, fatalities, we knew we wanted to do something and expand that technology. So something that we saw in 2020 was an increase in the amount of our truck-mounted attenuators that were getting hit during our mobile work zone operation. So knowing we had that concern and just knowing the fatalities and crashes were increasing, we wanted to expand this. So I'm happy to report that we are expanding that, and after expansion, we will have over 500 vehicles at the DOT with this technology. And those 500 vehicles will include the remainder of our emergency response fleet. They'll be on at least a vehicle in every single one of our sheds across our state. We'll have at least one vehicle with this technology. And then we'll also be installing this technology on aerial platform trucks, signal bucket trucks, an auger truck. And so again, it'll be over 50 vehicles at the DOT with this technology. And the majority of those will have the HAWS equipment, and we're partnering with HAWS and Geotab for those vehicles. So then lastly, I wanted to really quickly mention something in regards to the STIT grant. So it was mentioned earlier that the STIT grant stands for the State Transportation Innovation Council, and each state has the opportunity, I believe, to get up to $100,000 in this grant. But we've applied for a STIT grant to help with this crowdsourcing for operations. So the crowdsourcing for operations definitely goes beyond this real-time digital alert, but I did just want to mention that we've applied for a STIT grant and we were awarded an operation in this area near future. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to take any questions or turn it back over.
Jim, are you on? I guess Paul may have lost his audio.
Neela?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, all of a sudden you lost audio. Is that with everyone?
I think that for people who were listening through the computer, it was disconnected, and for some on the phone, but people are getting on the phone that I shared in the chat bot, so if that's an ongoing issue with you, please just use the phone, and it seems like it's fine on that side.
Yeah. Paul, you back? Well, I'm sure he'll be back on. I did hear all of Ashley's presentation, which was phenomenal as usual. Ashley, you did a great job sharing all of that, and kudos to Missouri and the states in your region that are participating, Ashley. And we will cover or get into the Q&A at the end, right, Nilu, versus right now.
Correct.
I think we'll give Paul another few seconds, and then I guess well, we have 50 minutes. The video of the Everyday Counts 6 Next Gen TIM that Paul mentioned we wanted to play today is about 42 minutes, I believe.
Right.
And, give Paul another minute to come in and see if he wants to make any remarks at first here, or we can get right into it.
That sounds good. I'm ready on my side to just share my screen, and I will have that on the Paul. But let me know. We'll see if Paul can join.
You know what? I don't think you'll mind at all, Nilu, if we just go ahead and run it, and then hopefully we'll have a few minutes for Q&A.
Okay, cool.
Let me start by reiterating Paul's message. Next Gen Traffic Incident Management, TIM, is something that every region in our nation should be looking into. It's not just about interstate freeways. It's about TIM at the local level. It's about TIM on all roadways. It's about keeping roads open for commerce, and it's about the reliability and productivity of our economy. Equally important, it's about keeping our hardworking responders safe and more available to tend to responsibilities beyond incident response, and ensuring that they and all of us go home every day. Our objectives today are to introduce the Next Gen TIM National Team, Next Gen TIM Business Case, and why state, regional, and local agencies should really look at this innovation and what benefit they will derive from its adoption. To hear from you about what's happening in your regions and how the Next Gen TIM Innovation Team can help agencies apply technologies, tools, and training to improve travel reliability, safety, resource use, and local economies, and encourage adoption. Complementing our FHWA team is the broader national team of experts that you see here in the next two slides. These individuals have demonstrated a unique understanding of TIM across disciplines and program areas, or have applied a specific Next-Gen TIM capability in their region. We will be adding a few other individuals to this national team of experts in the coming months, and we will have these experts ready to connect with local implementation teams within your regions to overcome hurdles they may face. Next-Gen TIM is an innovation with a very broad primary audience. Thus, we will need the help of division offices more than traditional transportation innovations. We need to get the word out about Next-Gen TIM, not only with transportation teams, but with local public works, law enforcement, fire, EMS, towers, and others who will benefit from this innovation. Certain Next-Gen TIM offerings are relevant to a few audiences. For example, computer-aided dispatch integration, while the National TIM Responder Training must connect with nearly every primary audience. Next-Gen TIM will do this both with your help at the division offices and through National Association outreach. And, of course, we welcome input from the FHWA division offices and the FHWA Local Technical Assistance Program on how best to reach and help regions practice efficient traffic incident management. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Joe Tebow.
So doing a sound check to see if Paul is able to unmute himself.
Yep, I am here. So now if you spread that out, we'll we'll ask a poll question. We're playing with this technology, and we had some technical difficulties. So which of the 4 Next-Gen TIM focus areas do you think has the most potential for your state and location? Probably most of you can read, so I don't have to read to you, but I did anyways. Responder training is always a big hit for everybody. That's a nice thing that, you know, we really want to advance TIM on the local roads this time around. And of course, you know, EDC in general is about innovation and about, you know, innovation is often about technology. So we think there's some opportunities there. Nilo, I think we can, everyone, we have what we needed here, and that's why we decided to, you know, continue with the training. There's a lot more to do with the training, a lot more to do with data collection. I would like to have a conversation with you about all of that. So helps us a lot with that. So with that, Nilo, take it away with the recording.
Hello, I'm Joe Tebow with the Federal Highway Administration in Washington, D.C. I'm assigned to the Traffic Incident Management Program. You might be saying, why is this guy from Federal Highway Administration wearing a fire department uniform? Well, for the last 43 years of my life, I've served as a volunteer firefighter, paramedic, fire officer, fire service instructor, swift water rescue instructor. You might say I know a few things because I've seen a few things. So why are we looking at expanding TIM to local roadways? It's part of Next-Gen TIM. Why expand it? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It works. It's proven to have many benefits. The first being responder safety for sure. TIM has become the standard practice for responders who utilize it on highways and expressways. It's become second nature to them. Emergency responders recognize that it's very compatible to their incident command system. In teaching that system, I've always emphasized this point, that incident command training isn't something that you receive one time and then you store it away. You can't wait for the big one or the major incident to come along one day and expect to pull the IC book off your bookshelf, blow the dust off of it, and expect it to work. You must utilize these processes in every incident, even the routine fender-bender crashes. Now, by doing that, you refine your skills, you become familiar with the challenges, and quite honestly, you become very good at it. It becomes second nature. And the same applies to TIM. Right? Agencies who are using TIM on the large roadways are now also implementing TIM on their local roadways because it works. It's effective. I mean, when responding to emergencies, heck, I've even used it on shopping center parking lot crashes. So TIM on local roads, why use it? What's the benefit? Well, one of the big benefits is that TIM is a scalable process. As I mentioned, when TIM becomes the norm for your agency, you'll find it being used everywhere because those who use it, many doing so without an order or an SOP, are doing so because it works. But most importantly, it's scalable, as I said, for every incident. Large, small, highway, arterial, local roads, doesn't matter. So to ensure that we address the challenges of moving this into the local road scenario, we'll have regular stakeholder meetings where we can share our challenges, discuss any unmet needs, etc. And just like a major incident, we'll discuss and share lessons learned from after-action reviews. That really should be occurring as a standard practice anyway. Call it a hot wash, after-action review, constructive review. We'll all stay engaged with the needs of the responder community and share what we learn. So let me touch on incident command and unified command for just a few moments because not everyone may know what that is, and I did talk a little bit about it earlier. An important segment of every incident is establishing command. right? Control, which is a designated point of control. When multiple agencies are all working at the same scene, emergency services establish what's known as a unified command. Simply explained, at the scene of a crash, there'll always be more than one agency on scene, right? Law enforcement, fire, EMS, DOT, safety services, towing, environmental crews, etc. We all have different jobs to perform with the same goal in mind: safe, adequate response, minimized on-scene times, what we're shooting for. Adoption of TIM by each of those agencies will enhance the unified command process. Everyone's marching to the same tune. Everyone understands what their job is and who's running the show. It promotes a smooth flow and execution of the objective. Lastly, TIM will provide the opportunity for many different agencies and disciplines to train together. There'll be knowledge sharing, establishing solid professional relationships. So what tools are available? Well, you know, we have specialty tow programs out there, incident response vehicles of different sizes, shapes, and variation, safety service patrols, intelligent transportation systems, and adaptive signal controls. So those are some of the tools in the toolbox for Next Gen TIM. One major enhancement to the TIM training will be a focus on including its use and principles on local roads. We're hoping to have that in the works and maybe even done in 2021. Additional enhancements are developing these 5 tech lessons that you see. Transportation Management Centers, TMCs, integrated computer-aided dispatch, TIM data and crowdsourcing, connected and automated vehicles, and unmanned aircraft systems, which I'm really think that's really cool. So alternative delivery of National TIM Responder Training Program. I think we can all agree that COVID-19 exemplified the need for remote training opportunities, and Federal Highway and the TIM team found themselves ahead of that curve. Good job. Next Gen TIM strives to find champions at the local level to promote virtual responder training options. Both of these options are free. The first is a 4-hour course offered through the Federal Highway's National Highway Institute. Many responders, including fire and EMS, can receive continuing education credits for this course. The second virtual option is offered through the Emergency Response Safety Institute through 10 different training modules. Soon we'll be debuting an instructor-led virtual training, and this will blend the benefits of in-person training with the flexibility of the virtual environment. The Next Gen TIM innovation is working with multiple responder associations to execute a grassroots training campaign and challenge FHWA division personnel to advocate for local training within your state. Folks, we need your help. In addition to promoting direct training, Next Gen TIM strives to institutionalize this training through laws, policies, and other mechanisms. Institutionalizing TIM training means that this training will continue long after our TIM champions have moved on. Institutionalization addresses the need for continued focus, retraining, potential refresher of the TIM training product. Expanding this into the law enforcement and fire EMS training academies, expanding it into many other areas of required training is our ultimate goal. At least 150 or more law enforcement and fire EMS academies have also included this TIM training as a mandatory requirement of their academy. So, you know, that's our vision in order to keep this moving forward, and in order for us as a team to continue leaning forward and renewing the training, expanding the training, updating the training, using new technology to the best benefit. You know, that's our goal with the institutionalizing of the National TIM Responder Training. Benefits of TIM programs and the training, well, it's amazing when you look at it. The benefits, some are known as direct, like 40% reduction in scene time, which led to a 25% reduction in fire apparatus struck at incident scenes in the year after the TIM training and down in Houston. 78% of responder supervisors rated personnel who attended TIM training as more safe as a result of that training. When officers became focused on TIM practices and time was tracked in computer-aided dispatch, roadway and incident clearance times were reduced by 32% during the first 6 months of 2018 in Arizona. Some of the indirect effects, well, I can tell you, using TIM out there on the roadways, I know it, I've lived it. It saves lives. Tough to measure that, right? For me, for anyone. But I can tell you, we're saving lives out there. Look, we all wear seatbelts while riding in an automobile, right? It's become the norm. We do it because we know it can save a life. I wear a safety vest, I wear turnout gear and a helmet for the exact same reasons. Not just because it's a written policy, but because my survival depends on it. So let's make implementing TIM just as common. So thank you for all you do. Now I'd like to pass it over to Grady Carrick for more on Next Gen TIM. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, one of the great opportunities for Next Gen TIM is in the area of technology. So for the next few minutes, I want to talk with you about some of those technologies that we think have an opportunity to help you take TIM to the next level. Computer-aided dispatch integration, unmanned aircraft systems, video sharing, and responder-to-vehicle alerts are what we're going to talk about today. Now, when roadway incidents happen, most of the time, people will call 911. It'll be the parties involved or passing motorists, and when the public safety agency receives those calls, they start an incident in their computer-aided dispatch system that catalogs the event and the response and organizes the response. Now, whether or not the public safety agency will contact a transportation agency really depends on the nature of the incident and the location of the incident. But when they do engage, it will usually be one of these 4 ways. So the most basic way that they'll notify a transportation partner is a manual notification. They'll pick up the phone and call, or they'll send a text or an email to the transportation agency. And then from there, there are varying levels of sophistication how that information might be shared, all the way down to level 4 where it's automated. Now, this is the ideal world. This is where people don't have to get involved. This is the seamless transfer of data from the computer-aided dispatch system to the traffic management center software. And that seamless integration of the data is really the ideal. Now, when we're sharing data about incidents between public safety and transportation agency, there's a lot of benefits, and clearly the major stakeholders are right here on the screen. Transportation agencies love it because they're not relying on that manual process that we described. They're automatically getting information about activities and events and things that are happening on roadways that they're responsible for. Better information helps them to operate the roadways better and to provide better assistance to public safety. And that is what the public safety agencies really like, is they like the improved safety that additional resources provide, whether it's travel information, advanced warning, temporary traffic control devices, or somebody there to help on the scene with traffic control or damaged infrastructure, other things like that. Who ultimately benefits the most is probably public gets more reliable information about their trip, and the roadways get cleared faster. So ultimately, the public benefits probably the most. Now, the agencies that have been doing CAD integration, again, various levels of sophistication of CAD integration, will tell you that it's helped them. It's helped them do their jobs better. It's helped them clear scenes more efficiently, and ultimately, it provides them with data that helps justify their programs in serving the public and doing TIM. So there on this slide is just a few of the benefits that have been noted by people doing CAD. UAS, Unmanned Aircraft Systems, sometimes called Unmanned Aerial Systems. The layperson probably knows them as drones. In the United States, there are about 1,500 public safety agencies using UAS. Unfortunately, not very many of them are doing it for traffic incident management, functions like crime scene and crash scene mapping, things that help us get the roadway opened faster. So let's talk about this as an opportunity. So when we're talking about crash mapping, we're talking about serious bodily injury and fatal crashes. The ones that are going to take a little bit more time because we're having to measure and map and photograph the scenes. Well, UAS helps us do that a lot faster. We take the UAS out of the responder vehicle, we do a safety check, we set it up in some software, tell it how to fly, how high, how many pictures to take. We deconflict the use of the UAS with some application software that talks to the FAA and makes sure it's safe to fly. And then we put the aircraft up, and it does an autonomous flight for about 20 minutes is all it takes. And we put things on the roadway that give us some scale, some ground control points or other measurements. And then when we're done, it lands itself. We take the memory card out and we put it in a personal computer with software that helps us stitch all of those 60 to 80, 100 photographs that the UAS took, and it helps us stitch them together and make sense of them. What it puts out is a two-dimensional orthomosaic, all these things stitched together in one giant overhead picture, or measurements. You know, through photogrammetry, we're able to take those known measurements we talked about and translate those into measurements between really any 2 points on a picture. So photogrammetry and measurements, and then finally 3D renderings, three-dimensional renderings, because we have angles and overlaps in our photographic images. So that's a little bit about how it works. Now on other TIM applications, probably a little less understood, but we feel pretty good about disaster response, situational awareness, cues, secondary crashes, and things like that. So again, between crash reconstruction and mapping and other TIM applications, UAS looks like the sky is just the limit. And how do we know that? We know it from the people who are doing it. You know, in Washington, the State Patrol took UAS out to 125 fatal and serious crashes in a pilot project. And what they experienced was an 80% reduction in road closure time. It was so compelling that they went out and bought 130 UAS, and this is the way they do business now. Down in the bottom there you see 25 minutes is what it took for the North Carolina DOT to fly 3 drones, while the State Patrol took an hour and 51 minutes using a 3D laser. This was a controlled experiment that they did to compare the two technologies. What we've found from agencies all over the country are dramatic time savings. There's probably no magic bullet in improving the TIM timeline, but if there was, this probably is the closest thing you would ever find to a magic bullet. Dramatic time savings. And so here's some examples of that. Video sharing technologies are another aspect of technology that we think has the opportunity to help take your TIM to the next level. There are places around the country where they're putting pan, tilt, and zoom cameras on safety service patrol vehicles. And by mounting them on the vehicles and sending those images via cellular data to the Traffic Management Center, they're able to really help the TMC understand those incident scenes and what is taking place on the scene. For example, the type of damage to the vehicles and what type of tow equipment might be needed, or the type of cues or temporary traffic control that might be present. Infrastructure, guardrails, signs, and other things that might be damaged and might require a transportation agency to dispatch some assets. So video sharing images from the scene to the TMC are a huge opportunity for NextGen TIM. We can also send images back the other way. You know, we talked about those CCTV cameras, and most states have hundreds of these cameras out in the field, and the ability to share those images with responders in their responder vehicles is a tremendous opportunity. And I'm talking about images that are probably a little bit higher quality than what you might find on a public-facing website or a 511 system. These systems allow responders to utilize a map of the roadway and camera network that's there on the left and choose several images that they want to use to create in their responder vehicle a video wall. And the video walls are what you see on the right. So for a police officer or Safety Service Patrol, they can create their own video wall and a video tour of their beat or zone and potential problem locations that they want to keep an eye on. The last TIM technology is responder to vehicle alert systems. You know, when a responder is on the side of the road with an incident, they turn on their emergency lights, and that sends a signal to everybody: slow down, move over, be careful, there's something up ahead. Responder to vehicle alert systems are combinations of hardware and software that do the same thing, but in a wider area. So when the lights are activated on the responder vehicle, an alert is sent to mapping and navigation providers so that any of the subscribers to those mapping and navigation systems get this alert. So what you see there on the right is a representation of what someone might see on a smartphone in their vehicle. And in this case, it's Waze, and it's telling them that there's a car stopped up ahead. It's an emergency vehicle, emergency responder stopped. So again, providing enhanced safety by alerting approaching motorists. These systems also have some dashboarding tools, and they tell us down to the individual responder vehicle how many times they stopped, how long they were stopped. It gives us some idea of subscribers that may have approached or passed that stop responder vehicle, so that we get an idea of how effective these systems are at alerting the motorist that there is a potential problem up ahead and to slow down, move over, and be careful. So that is 4 technologies that we think can enhance your TIM, take your TIM to the next level through NextGen TIM technology.
Okay, another poll question. Can you expand that box? Which of the 4 technologies you think has the most potential for your state location? Okay, UAS, unmanned vehicle alerts, respond to the vehicle alerts. Okay. CAD. Would love to see more folks using CAD around. Would love to work with you on that. But okay. All right. Thanks, Nilo. Let's continue. We're almost done with the recording here. Thank everyone for bearing with us during our technical difficulties. But with that, Nilo, let's talk about data.
Before we talk about TIM data, analytics, and crowdsourced data, I want to talk to you about your checkbook. Imagine managing your checkbook from memory and not writing down how much you were spending. I would imagine before long you'd get an overdraft notice from your bank. In the world of traffic incident management, an overdraft notice would be a secondary crash. It could even be a responder struck by, or maybe even a line of duty death. On your checkbook, if you just wrote down how much you were spending in your ledger, even if you didn't reconcile your checkbook, there's a good chance you could avoid the majority of those overdraft notices. Likewise, in the world of TIM, if you collect the 3 basic TIM performance measures, you're going to reduce secondary crashes and improve your clearance time. I used to always say what gets measured gets done. As an incident responder at the scene of a crash, it can be very hectic. But when you're collecting the traffic incident management performance measures at every single incident, day in, day out, it helps that muscle memory to where you're performing those TIM strategies, protecting yourself and others, and reducing clearance times. When you have to go and ask for additional resources or funding for your TIM program, you're going to have to build a business case in this world where everybody's competing for the limited resources. TIM data will help you to understand, first off, your baseline. It will help identify where there's opportunities for improvement, and you can use that TIM data to develop cost benefits. We will talk about a few examples of that here a little bit later on. One of the very first things is awareness, sharing the data to get people aware and involved. This is an example of where the Florida DOT used a very simple but very effective tool, a dashboard, to share their TIM data, specific their 3 TIM performance measures: roadway clearance, incident clearance, and secondary crashes. Dashboards are being used for a variety of different things. On the left, you can see where Maryland developed a dashboard using data collected by their CHART program, which is Freeway Service Patrol, to help predict incident duration in the Baltimore area. On the right, Arizona collected the data on who was collecting the TIM performance measures, who was not collecting the TIM performance measures, and those agencies that were maybe collecting partial. By mapping that out, it helped their program identify which agencies needed additional assistance and outreach in filling out the complete traffic crash reports, which is where they collected the TIM performance measures. You can use the data to dig even deeper. Arizona looked at secondary crashes and what causes them. One of the primary causes involved in secondary crashes a lot of time is alcohol impairment or drug impairment. D-drivers, drunk and drugged. Looking at the data, they were able to show on the state highway system about 1% of the secondary crashes had alcohol involved in them. On the local system, it was 6 times higher, 6.61%. That's a pretty good business case to get local responders and local programs more involved. In Oregon, they looked at all their incidents that were taking them longer than 90 minutes to clear. They plotted them out, they identified what caused that delay, and now they can start working on strategies to improve. Here's where they took the data and they actually used it to get resources or additional funding for their programs. Utah was able to double their incident management team from 12 to 24 by showing how they could reduce incident clearance times by 5% on 17,500 incidents. In Georgia, they have a program called TRIP. It's the Towing and Recovery Incentive Program. This program was able to reduce clearance times by 82% on commercial vehicle crashes. That equates to about an 11-to-1 cost-benefit ratio. In the Arizona Department of Public Safety, again, based on just that simple awareness and collecting the 3 TIM performance measures, the first year they were able to show how they saved the equivalent to 25 full-time troopers, or it ended up being about 44,000 hours in incident clearance time, that equates to or gives them an additional 3% of unobligated patrol time. Because of that success, they were allowed to pilot a program where they put troopers in the Traffic Operations Center during peak traffic hours to help coordinate and better communicate directly with the scene. That resulted in a 8.4 million vehicle hour reduction in congestion in the Phoenix metro area. That is about roughly $112 million in savings to the motorists within the Phoenix area. Obviously, that sold the program, and they're now 24/7, not just during peak hours. Crowdsourcing data is an exciting area. When we go traveling, we're all carrying our cell phones with us. Many of us are driving connected vehicles or automated vehicles. When we have our cell phones with us in our car, there's data being sent out, towers being pinged. Smart people are starting to take advantage of that, like INRIX, Google, TomTom, the navigational companies. They're using that data, that ping from your cell phone or that Bluetooth signal when you're connecting your vehicle to your hands-free device to calculate and measure vehicle movement and travel. Have you ever noticed when you're got your navigation on and there's a traffic signal ahead and it's red and all of a sudden it goes green and you realize that it goes green because the traffic signal turned green? That is real time. That crowdsourced data can tremendously help our TIM programs, and many agencies are starting to take advantage of that. Here, Tennessee has a queue mitigation program, and one of the things, obviously the first step of mitigating a queue to where you can send additional resources is being able to identify that queue. Tennessee, like many areas, they don't have sensors everywhere, but through the use of the free Waze data, they're able to identify queues where they don't have signals and able to apply their program. In Iowa, 24% of the time they're aware of incidents through the use of Waze rather than sensors or detecting by a responder. In Virginia, 38% of all their crashes are first detected by using crowdsourced data. With that, I'll turn it back over to Jim. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Now that you have heard all about the Next-Gen TIM focus areas, we have a quick poll success. And so how does Everyday Counts measure success? Well, by states progressing at least one stage by the end of the 2-year EDC 6 cycle or December 2022. In addition to the national team, these are some of the initiative resources to support you. Next-Gen TIM funding opportunities. First is the State Transportation Innovation Council Incentive, which offers up to $100,000 per state per year to standardize an innovation. We also have the Accelerated Innovation Deployment Demonstration Fund, which is up to $1 million available per year to deploy an innovation not routinely used. Here's an example of synergistic EDC 6 innovations. Next-Gen TIM plus crowdsourcing. An example would be queue warning with crowdsourcing. Take advantage of these and sign up. Standard disclosure statement. Questions and answers to follow. And finally, here's Paul and I's contact info. Thank you, and we look forward to working with you over the next 2 years.
Thanks, everybody. Paul back again. So I just, I don't know if you guys had too much coffee in that chat pod or what's going on there, but You know, I just want to be clear. We think that the EDC initiative looks to improve responder safety by using all the tools in the toolbox, the responder training. That's why the responder training is the basis for this initiative, as well as data collection. And then, so we're building on those two early initiatives, and then we're adding the technology. I see, John Martin and Jack Sullivan and some of these, the comments in there. The technology is beneficial. We need the training and the technology. We need everything that's at our disposal to help with responder safety. So that's our perspective and on that. There was also, yeah, Jim. Yeah.
Can we ask Nilu to expand the Q&A pod?
Oh, sure. You just did. Actually, John Stevenson asked who's funding all the technology. Well, the local agencies, John, are funding the technologies. As Ashley had mentioned in her presentation, there is a small amount of money. I'll remind everyone about the STIC funding. The STIC funding is $100,000 per year per state, and it's usually competitive. So if you want to do something like Ashley did, she supported, was able to support a couple of peer exchanges, but there's, it's pretty open what that $100,000 is used for, but you have to apply through your STIC committee, and your federal highway, your federal highway and/or state DOT person can help you with that. But that's a good opportunity as well. But most of the technology that you see deployed is the state funding or the agency funding. That's what we've seen for the most part. Jim, did you have anything?
Yeah, there's actually earlier in the webinar, I saw some other questions. I was going to go back to see, so we're respectful of everybody that asked questions, Paul. Bear with me here. Can you see me scrolling? That's the technical difficulties. Here's another one from John Martin. You see that one, Paul?
Jim, if you could read the question, I think Paul was having some echo issues, so I muted him for a second.
This is another one from John Martin. I'm not sure the technology he's referring to. The technology is great, but we still need to focus on being smarter with our utilization of boots on the ground, detection and verification, along with effectively communicating that to other agencies and responders. I wholeheartedly agree, John. Can we open the lines, Nilu? So if John wants to expand on that, or anyone else wants to speak up. What is it, Nilu? *6 to unmute? Or *6?
Yes, it's *, but I do need to activate it. So give me 1 minute, and then we should have that option.
Okay. So John, if you're listening, be prepared there. Yeah, I saw David Fink's remark there regarding our poll question. I believe the first one or both of them, is the all the above choice. I guess the technologies that would most, I guess, advance your state, or do you think would advance your state or be interested in most?
Yeah, we purposely, Jimmy, do you hear me back?
Yes, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, we purposely left that out, all of the above, because we wanted to get a handle on what is which of the technology, which of the questions is of interest, and all of the above wouldn't give us the information that we're looking on our end.
Yeah, copy that, Paul. Good point. So Neela was trying to open the mics for all that may want to speak up, not be bashful.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was talking about, is that, that we, if we're making it sound like the technology is more important than the training, that's not our intent. We want to build on the training, but we feel the training, the technology is an opportunity as well.
Yeah.
The mic is open now, just so you know. So if you put *# in your keypad on the phone, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is John Stevens from Grand Prairie, Texas. I was the one that typed in the question about the funding, and thank you guys for covering that a little bit. So Chief Croom, he posted a slide up there that showed 2 fire trucks, one with a TMA mounted and one without. The one with the TMA mounted is a project that we just finished. We have 2 of those that we use on our roadways that we've put in service now. That was a recent acquisition. The only way to get funding for that, and I've had multiple phone calls from multiple departments across the country, there is no avenue to get the funding for that. I wrote a reimbursement program grant through transportation here at our Council of Governments, and that was probably the worst experience I've ever had in all my years of writing grants and looking for money. So if we really want this to happen, we have to streamline the funding process on this some way. Either remove the middleman in the grant process and allow departments to go straight to the DOT for this funding. But without it, it's never going to happen. Major departments, Fort Worth, Dallas, they've all been in contact with me, and everybody wants to get on board with this, but nobody can get the funding for it. So that's our biggest obstacle. If we really want to break down the barriers and get rid of these obstacles and get some serious projects out there that create a positive impact, we've got to do something about the funding. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Yeah, that's a great point. Jim and I and Joe are hoping that Congress has, we don't have that kind of funding. The federal highway, we're the federal government, but we have only a small stipend of money for our program, smaller than what you might think. So we're not positioned, generally speaking, to do grants. However, some folks in Congress have, we have got some attention, not we, but the TIM community, about the concerns with responder safety. So we're hoping with some interaction that we've had with them, and actually some research that we're doing now, that we can, we're hoping through some research funding that came from Congress on responder safety, that we can maybe include that as a recommendation that, and increase funding for responder safety initiatives would be helpful. But yeah, that's totally been a frustration of ours for a long time. Jim, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest, and no promises, but just to put it in writing, John, an email to Paul, myself, and Joe, generically explaining that, exactly what you just said, may help. We could use that just to demonstrate or share with our bosses, because we've been aware over the past several years. You mentioned it as well. We were aware of the crash down in in Irving, Texas, with the ladder truck and the Irving Fire Department. I forget the name of team there, the department specifically, I think, that also did something similar with apparatus. And then you mentioned a couple other states, and I know Chief up in Illinois, Inver Heights Fire Department that did the same thing, and there's others. So I think it's a great idea and great best practice for sure for fire departments to take older apparatus, that are out of commission officially for fire response, but and I guess utilize them for traffic incident management support and safety.
Yes, sir. And you bring up a great point right there. This is John Stevenson again. You bring up a great point, and this is part of where I was able to sell this to my administration, is that by us taking an out-of-commission fire truck and sticking it out on the roadway and waiting for the public to run into that to protect our workspace, that to me seems like we're either putting an abandoned vehicle or an obstruction in the roadway, knowing that 85% of the time those people that strike a stationary vehicle end up in a fatality. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to put that public protection package out there where we actually took positive action or some type of response where we applied something to that fire truck to protect the public. So that distracted driver, that influenced driver or driving under the influence, if they hit that TMA, we know that through MASH testing that they'll probably walk away from it. So I think that's another thing that we may need to look at as legislation. So if we mandate through DOT and NHTSA and all them, maybe this is something else that we need to take a look at. And I know that's a big ask for a fire department when you mandate something to say, hey, listen, you can't just take and stick a chunk of steel out there and wait for somebody to run into it. There's some type of action that you need to take proactively to protect the public.
Yeah, good point, for sure.
This is John Sullivan with TDOT Help. I'm on the line with you.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I agree with what he's saying there 100% as well. And while I'm hugely in favor of the next-gen TIMs, I don't want to misconstrue what I was saying, because I'm completely in favor of next-gen TIMs, and I've been seeing the technology grow for over the last 20 years. It's been 17, 18 years now that we've had the SmartWay cameras up in Nashville, but I've not seen, without the boots on the ground, how those SmartWay cameras have always or been as beneficial as we've hoped them to. And we've encouraged and brought in new technologies over the years. And it's in other words, I'm just kind of saying, if we're going to talk the talk, we have to walk the walk as well. And I am hugely interested in the responder safety aspect, but we've got to embrace this technology as well, just like you're saying. It's so slow in coming. You can sit in a meeting all morning talking about a new technology and how we want to implement it. It's going to be implemented soon. And then 5 minutes later, you're boots on the ground at a scene and you're doing the same, arcane, older style technology that we've used. We went from flip phones to having phones with cameras, and the little bit of technology we've gotten is greater. But I was just saying we need to focus on keeping our responders trained. I think we've lost some of the focus on what their responsibilities are and their roles as far as the detection and verification and disseminating that information, other than just blocking a lane, and kind of like what he was just saying about sticking trucks or objects in the road to block lanes and wondering why they get hit as often as they do. Are we getting smarter, or we're working harder? But I fully embrace the technology aspect of the next gen TIMs, and I'm willing to do my part on any of it to push our agendas. It's just hard to do with some of the rural areas and the underdeveloped areas that we work with that are, our neighbors and part of our communities as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John. Paul, we're 4 minutes over.
Yeah. I would just add that, something, John, it's all hard, right? it's all everything we've been doing, you know, for the years Jim and I have been around, like it sounds like you have as well, you know, 20, 25 years. So it's all been hard, but we have made progress. We got to continue making progress, and you know you know, so we just keep the faith, I guess, and keep marching forward with all that we can do to improve safety and efficiency on the roadways. So, Jim, anything else? I think we could wrap it up since we are 5 minutes late.
Well, I wish we could keep on, because I'm sure others have lots of ideas, thoughts, and questions. But just like you said, Paul, very well said. We got to keep fighting the good fight and doing great things because it matters. And we all get to go home at night, and it's all thanks to the great people we have on this phone and across our nation that support good traffic incident management.
With that, we'll call it a webinar and see you guys next month.